So it's come to this, a Professor Skye top 5 list. I've been talking over the last couple weeks, and every once in a while I'll throw out like, oh, this rapper is not in my top 5, or this rapper is in my top 5. And some people put in the comments, okay, Skye, well, what are your top 5s? The problem with having a top 5 list is that once you have said it, you are open to criticism and open to attack. But that's okay. I am going to be giving you what I perceive of to be my top 5. Now, first of all, let me talk a little bit about methodology here. This is not purely who are my favorite MCs, okay? I'm not talking about producers, I'm just talking about rappers, MCs, okay? Not who are my favorite MCs, okay? Who do I like the most, okay? So King T is not making it on here. Biz Markie is not making it on here. Kanye is not making it on here, okay? Those are rappers that I love and who mean a lot to me, but I can say that would be too subjective. Nor am I going purely objective, saying, well, who is definitively in the top 5, okay? So there's going to be some omissions here that will surprise you, where you will go, how can he possibly say that? Everybody knows that Lil Wayne is in the top 5. Not for me. Is he in your top 5? Sweet. I love it. Share, you know what? Share in the comments. You make a better list than me, and you probably will. You probably know as much or more about hip-hop than I do. Or maybe you know less, but you still have your top 5. You can still put it there, okay? So I'm also not going to be including Nas. I've reviewed Nas's album last week. A lot of people got angry at me. This is why I'm doing this video. People got mad at me because they said, Skye, how can you say he's overrated? You don't understand hip-hop. You only like hip-hop when Eminem started rapping. You are a total poser. That's fine. I can handle it. I'm not a hip-hop guy. I love hip-hop music. I've loved hip-hop music for as long as I can remember loving any kind of music. But I am a professor of French. I don't pretend to be some kind of real expert on hip-hop music. But all I was saying about Nas is I just think he's overrated. And I just want to make this clear. I want to put this on video. Saying something is overrated is not saying it is bad. Another example. Quentin Tarantino is a terribly overrated director. He's delightful. He's amazing. He's made some of the best movies of the past 30 years. No doubt he is an amazing top-level director. Totally overrated. Bacon. Delicious food. I love it with lettuce and tomato. A little bit of mayo. Sometimes throw some avocado in there if you want kind of a California feel. That's overrated. Sausage. I actually like sausage better than bacon. That doesn't mean bacon's bad. That's what I think about Nas. And that's what I think about a lot of the guys and women who are not going to be on this list. Now, there are no women on the list. I think if Nicki Minaj kept doing what she was doing in Monster, as opposed to sort of splitting herself between sort of rap and pop, I probably would have had her on here. I'm tempted to put Missy Elliott on here, but that's, if I ever do a list of sort of like my 5 favorite taste makers in hip hop, she would be on that list, like influential figures, she's up there. A lot of new guys aren't on this list. And it's not just that I'm an old dude, okay? It's not just that I'm in my 40s, which I am, okay? It's that it's hard to have that distance, okay? So in 10 years, when I do this list again, is Conway the Machine going to be on this list? Probably. I love that guy's raps. They're so good. He's got style, flow, all that. Freddie Gibbs, same thing. Hell, I don't know hardly anything about Lupe Fiasco. I just reviewed one of his EPs, and I got so into that album, it was scary, okay? Part of the fact that this list is going to maybe piss you off is that I was asleep. People are going to say, Skye, you slept on X and you slept on Y. I did. Between the years of 2002 2018, I didn't pay attention to music. I just didn't. I was having kids, getting my doctorate, and I was becoming an old man, stuck in my ways. It's never going to get better than it was in 1999. So I'm just putting all these things out there, okay? These are weaknesses of my list. So part of me is saying, this is my list, and you can't criticize it because it's just my opinion. But part of me is also saying, but I also think that this is a good list. I am looking for criticism. I am looking for you to tell me, how dare you leave Nas off there, you complete ignorant jerk. Get your hands off the culture, dig a hole, jump in the hole, pour fire ants into the hole yourself, and just get eaten alive by those ants for thinking Nas is overrated. Some acts aren't going to make it just because I'm trying to really focus on singular achievement. So Chuck D might have made it on here, but Chuck D without Flavor Flav is not Chuck D. Run DMC might have made it on here. Yeah, I'd go with Run, but come on. EPMD, same thing. What I'm really focusing on here, and my 3 criteria, the things I'm thinking about, like what is it that makes these people on my list that is trying to be a mixture of subjective and objective at the same time. Okay? That's what I'm going for here, which I think is the best way to do it for any of these like top whatevers. It has to be a mixture of those things. Or at least I have to acknowledge it's a mixture of those things. Flow, voice, and words. So flow is simply the rapper's ability to go from line to line, to say things and to have them go throughout an entire verse, control over language, control over breath, just a feeling that when you're listening to somebody, the metaphor I always come up with is, if you've never watched Jimi Hendrix play guitar, you've missed something great. Just watch his hands. The dude played guitar, and the way that he moved his fingers, it was as though he was breathing. He was playing chords and single notes and following melodies, and like what I'm doing right here, he would do that but with purpose. Great rappers are able to do that, where they just say things, and you're just like, how are they saying these things with such rhythm and precision and charisma, okay? A lot of the charisma, which I think is an important part of an MC, just like any other singer, right, is in the flow. Voice. I think you need to have a good voice. I don't think there is a good rap voice. You'll see some of the people I like here have there's different styles, different registers you can have, different approaches you can have, but the voice has to be good. The flow carries the voice, but the voice needs to be strong, needs to be distinctive. Words. Just have to have interesting words. I study language. I have to feel that combination of like cleverness. Like I need a little bit of cleverness to make me go, God, It's one of the great things, right? Rock and roll is great. I love rock and roll. But like, very rarely in rock and roll do you hear someone sing a lyric and you go, oh, What's great about hip hop is like on a good rap album, the first couple times you listen to it, it's exciting, it's fun. So these rappers have to be able to do that. Okay, so I'm going to give you the list now, starting with 5, going down to 1. And I'll show you my favorite albums of each of those rappers, okay? Now I'm cheating with number 5. Number 5 is the only one I'm going to do this. Number 5 is a tie. I call it the token tie. It's Kendrick Lamar and Eminem. They are tied at number 5. Now, these are my favorite albums of theirs, The Eminem Show and To Pimp a Butterfly, obviously. Now, why are these my tokens? You might say, well, obviously Eminem is a token because he's a white guy, and there's not going to be a lot of white guys on this list. Well, that's true. He is the only white guy on this list. That's not why he's a token. Kendrick Lamar, he's a West Coast guy. Is Skye really not going to have Tupac on this list? Is Ice Cube missing off this list? Is Tyler, the Creator, who had his most successful video on this channel, not on this list? That's also true. This is my only West Coast representative. Subjective, objective. I'm an East Coast guy. I'm from Boston. It's almost the East Coast. I like the East Coast flow more, okay? But that's actually not why these guys are tokens. It is true. They're tokens because they are an example of technically proficient rap. Rap genius rap. Rap that you need 3 different kinds of highlighters to go through and go, oh, look, this interior rhyme matches that interior rhyme. Did he just rhyme with orange? Wow! I love technical rap. Aesop Rock and MF Doom, but they're not on this list either, okay? I have a certain tolerance for technically proficient rap. And I don't think it's useless, and I don't think it's stupid. But it happens to be something that doesn't interest me that much. So if you're expecting those kinds of people to be at the top of the list, they're just not for me. They're represented by these two highly technical, yet also very emotionally satisfying and interesting rappers. If I had to put them in order, this would be 6. No, that'd be 5. I don't actually listen to Eminem much though. Like I don't like enjoy listening to Eminem, but every time I hear him, he just blows my mind. So I guess you deserve credit for that. Whereas this album, I listen to it to death. Number 4 is Rakim. So it's important to say that I'm talking about Rakim, and he's often in a top 5 list, you know, from Eric B. and Rakim. And he's often a top 5 because of taking the old school to the new school. And that's also why he's on my list. You see, I love old school rap. I listen to a lot. This right here is my first cassette. My first rap cassette, Crushin' by the Fat Boys, okay? This is how I started, all right? I really enjoy old school rap cadences. I find it interesting. I love new school rap. Rakim gives you both. It is so nice. It is such a treat to be able to have the confidence and the complexity of a new school flow while still also having the old school flow there. Flow, voice, and words. I will actually say my real favorite Eric B. and Rakim song is not on here. I don't like the cut of Eric B. for President. This right here, if you need to know, hey Skye, I like old school hip hop, but I don't want to buy all of the albums. Marley Marl's House of Hits is goddamn masterpiece. Track after track after track after track after track. Every single one is old school gold produced by Marley Marl. When I make a top 5 producers, spoiler alert, he's near the top. And so the version of Eric B. for President on here, I took this CD once and I was driving to visit my girlfriend who lived in Maryland, Gaithersburg, Maryland. I lived in Boston, and I drove, and almost the entire way, I just tried to memorize Eric B. for President. Came in the door, I said it before, never let the mic magnetize me, over and over again. And when I did that, I just learned to really connect with just the beauty, the precision, and the perfection of that song. The old school and new school perfection of that song. So get paid in full, but dear, if you don't have Marley Marl's House of Hits, you just don't have a good hip-hop record collection. Mind you, I probably don't either. I don't even have any Lupe Fiasco. I love that guy. That House album is so good. Number 3, may be surprised, now that I've told you Tupac is not on the list. Now I've told you I'm an East Coast guy. Now I've told you that I love flow, and I love voice, and I love words. And there's one person I haven't mentioned. You're probably thinking that's going to be slotted for number 1. But no, I'm going Notorious B.I.G. number 3. This is really going to piss you off. I apologize. This is really going to bother you, and I'm sorry that it is. My favorite Notorious B.I.G. album. Oh, God. Can I even do this? You're still mad at me about the Nas thing. Born Again is my favorite Notorious B.I.G. album. He was dead. Puffy found a whole bunch of producers and guest rappers and a bunch of old verses and repurposed verses that had already been released. But just track for track for track, as far as listenability goes, I find Born Again to be the most purely listenable Notorious B.I.G.'s album. I have to say, I love the other albums. There can be skips on them. No skips on this one. Nobody makes me happier listening to hip-hop than listening to Notorious B.I.G. His flow is ridiculous. His voice is so distinctive. Maybe his word choice isn't as interesting as it potentially could be, but just the excitement, like, of trying to explain, like, how can hip-hop be so, like, vibrant and just lovely, even while it's brutal, even while it's ugly, you know, even while it's talking about ugly things. That's just all you need to hear, is just any Notorious B.I.G. verse. That's why I'd say he is my 3rd favorite. We're getting close now. We're getting to number 2. This shouldn't be a surprise for those of you who watch my channel. The only person on this list I met at a Wu-Tang Clan concert at the Armory in Rochester. I put that in quotes because, like, it was like 3 members of Wu-Tang there. But one of them was Ghostface Killah. I just made a video about Boldy James, and I talked about one of the things I love about hip-hop is the way that it stretches language. That it really is a stress test on language. Like, what can be considered communication? Nobody does a better, more interesting job of stressing the idea of words' power to communicate information better than Ghostface Killah. This is my favorite album of his, Supreme Clientele. Again, not a single skip on the entire album. It doesn't even feel that much like a Wu-Tang album. It's just a Ghostface album. And first of all, his flow, his ridiculous attack, and then the fact that he is able to he created this whole other flow on the W. The W is a different album, and he created this like whining, crying flow, which I think is partly responsible for a lot of the emo stuff that's happening right now, you know? So he has that flow. He has an unmistakable voice. A lot of people have copied it, but no one can quite match it. The weird piercing attack. And then the words. Nobody, in my opinion, does a better job with words. Just putting together just weird words that you can't associate together. He also just creates these lines, and I like, you know, when I first heard them, I wasn't even thinking about what they meant, you know, because you have to understand, you know, this came out, what, 2000? Yeah. When this album came out in 2000, there's no internet. I mean, there was internet, but not really. I didn't know how to use it. So, like, both hands clusty, like, when he said, like, both hands clusty, I don't know what that means. Clusty? Are my hands clusty? What does it mean? And like the freedom to not know what it means meant that like when I was, you know, that's my senior year of college, you know, like when I was tired from typing, I'm like, oh, both hands are clusty, you know, just this like playing with words. Ridiculous vocabulary, ridiculous like renaming things and just coming up with different ways of calling things and just such a thick layer of slang upon slang upon slang that it really resembles abstract poetry more than it does human speech. Ghostface Killah. I tapped him on the shoulder, I shook his hand, and I said, "Thank you for your music." That's what I say when I meet a famous person. I just thanked them for the thing. I met George Lucas. Thank you for your movies. I actually met George Lucas the same week I met Ghostface Killah. I'm not going to get better than that. That was a good week. Which leaves us to number 1. You already know. You already know because I haven't mentioned them. You already know who it's going to be because I haven't mentioned them. Iggy Azalea. No, you know who it is. No, not him. Sorry. I'm, of course, talking about Jay-Z. Nobody helped me understand the idea of rap as an art form better than Jay-Z. I first heard Jay-Z, I first paid attention in college. I heard Hard Knock Life playing on like the PA system in the cafeteria. And I was like, you know, maybe this is good. And I went out and bought Volume 2 and everything. I mean, he's just it. Like, I think to say that anybody is better than Jay-Z is affect. Like, you're just trying to be different. I mean, beyond his influence, flow, voice, and words, his vocabulary is insane. His voice is completely memorable. No one else sounds like him. He has a great dynamism to his voice. He can yell, he can growl, he can whisper. And his flow and just the way he completely... Everybody in rap had to up their game because of Jay-Z. The mainstream had to be upped. The alternative needed to be just made better. He also is such a good, you know, beyond, okay, I'm not talking about the fact that he owns the Nets or whatever, that he owns 10 Basquiats. I'm just talking about somebody who just, he did everything that Biggie did, you know, but I think he just did it better. And I think he did it for longer. I think he did it more consistently. You know, I think 444 is as good as... You know, my favorite album of his, Volume 3. What? That's not Reasonable Doubt, Skye. I know. I think Reasonable Doubt is overrated. Don't hit me. I do. I think it's great. It's great. It's awesome. It's an awesome album. But I think his more mature work, I think Blueprint, all the blueprints, I think Volume 3, I think Volume 2 just show a better side. So that's my number 1. That's my top 5. Eminem, Kendrick, tied, Rakim, Biggie, Ghostface, Killah, and Jay-Z. Very, very male, very, very East Coast, very, very tied in to somebody who grew up with the Fat Boys and Public Enemy and then ended up getting into rap in the 90s. I hope this list will change. Stay with me, stay with this channel. I'm doing this channel until I die. So hopefully for like another 50 years, I'll be doing that. And I'll be talking about this to the old guys. And at that point, who knows? Conway might be number 2. Lupe might be number 1. All right. Well then, I hope you enjoyed that list. Was that a good idea? Do you like this? Are you just too mad at me for saying Reasonable Doubt and Nas are overrated? It's like, pick a lane, Skye. Are you like an old dude who is too attached to the past? Or are you just trying to be a jerk, saying that Born Again is the best Biggie album? I don't know. I can be both. All right. Well, until next time, do please subscribe to the channel and like it. And what the hell? Patreon me. Patreon.com/Professor Skye. I use this to buy albums. That's what I do with all the money. I got Toby here. Toby, you want to hop up? Hop up. Toby. Also, DMX is not on the list. Nor was Fredro Starr. I was tempted with Fredro, but it's hard to solo him out from Onyx. Okay. Well, then for Toby and for... boy, you really didn't want to come up here. Okay, you can hop down. Jeez. There's the camera. A couple hours later, I went for a nice walk with my wife. Had some pizza, and I just had this thought that I didn't really give Jay-Z his due. I didn't really explain why I think he should be number 1. I mean, yeah, I talked about his flow and his voice and his words, but the thing that I think may be overlooked is his balance. He's able to always strike this great balance between very cocky while also expressing his doubts. About being very sort of blind. Just a creature of blind ambition, while also expressing his remorse. Even though he's so famous for being one of the great crack rappers of all time, he also is one of the first and one of the most effective at displaying the kind of trauma and the negative psychological impact that a life of crime can have on you. So there's a sort of balance between the sort of human and inhuman that he's able to get, which is what I think you want with someone who is such a larger-than-life figure, And that balance goes further than that as well. On the one hand, because he is a business mogul, he's not just a businessman, he's a businessman, because he does, represent a lot of these right-wing values, but also he has been making an interesting shift towards more political content, towards more content that deals with issues of race and class, and I think that's another example of the balance. He manages to, preach without ever seeming preachy. And I think that all ties into just why he's the other thing I didn't really touch on, which is his longevity. It's been 25, 30 years since he sold crack, and he seemingly has still not run out of ways of using those metaphors, of using that metaphor to express his life now. But then he's able to go beyond that, because he's able to just have this career where from Reasonable Doubt until now, every album is good, every album is relevant. He always finds the best producers. He always stays in touch with the latest trends without just giving into them. And that's another one of those balancing things he can do. He can be ridiculously poppy, right? Just know how to write a hook, know how to have a song that will play on Jammin' 94.5, but then also know how to just give the bars and just how to be the hardest, best rapper there is out there. So it's really that longevity of balance, which I don't think any other rapper even comes close to Jay-Z on. And that's not even talking about all the different kinds of raps he's had. When he beefs, he's funny and interesting and good, and when he's reflective, he's good, and when he's flossing, he's good. Hell, he even had basically an entire album all about the pain of being nouveau riche, right? About the pain of not being taken seriously by all the wealthy jerks he was buying art from, And that's maybe the biggest balancing act between the lie and the truth. Because so much of rap is a lie. You have a fake name, right? By the way, most of the people on my list all have bad names. You know, like I think Notorious B.I.G. is a bad name. Jay-Z is a terrible name. Rakim is okay. I guess that's a pretty good one. Eminem is the worst name in rap history, bar none. Kendrick Lamar is fine. Ghostface Killah is great. But you know, Jay-Z, like that's fake. That's not who he is. He's actually Sean Carter. So he's able to like match that, the persona and the person, and have that balance, I think, most effectively. Okay. There we go. That's the real reason that he's number one. All those extra reasons. Okay, I'll try not to think of another and then do a video with even creepier lighting than this. Do you hear all these bugs? This is where I live, y'all. That's my willow tree. This is the porch my wife redid. A little bit of my help. The kids. Okay. Well then, until I get murdered by that guy over there, there's the camera.